down the rabbit hole of rock and roll's past, present, and future. It's Barstool Rockers with your hosts, Jim Finn and Dan Michaels.
So, one of the lessons I've learned since injuring myself was that Brian May used coins instead of guitar picks. He flattens coins and uses those.
And Lindsey Buckingham uses nothing.
I know, a lot of guys are like that. And I found out, just the other day, a story came out. One of your very favorite artists, Paul McCartney, also uses coins and was caught doing so.
This is a cool story.
In I think it's the Hamptons. Yeah, New York's Hamptons. At the Long Island Railroad. Put down a dozen pennies and let the train come and get him. And he was just, guy in his shorts and a T-shirt and a cap. Walked out there, boink, 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 put him down. Train comes by. He comes back out, grabs him. So, yeah, they talk about he used coins for a very long time, and then he tried to go to acrylic nails, and that didn't work. So he went back to coins.
He's just a coin pick kind of guy.
Just very strong.
I wonder what he was using back in the Wings days. Not
back
to mention the
days.
Beatles days.
Back in the day.
Getting back, as it were.
On the long and winding road.
Yeah. Here we go.
So anyway, before we, go too far down that rabbit hole, you have a guest you talked to recently, apparently, that might be connected to Mr. McCartney, huh?
Yeah, former Wings member, Denny Laine.
You're happy.
That's basically my childhood. Wings and Cheap Trick and the Beatles. That's basically it.
Well, there you go. We got to get McCartney on. I wonder if we can. Anybody know McCartney that's listening right now?
If anybody has any email contact to Sir Paul, please.
Or a lawyer.
Or anything.
Like yeah.
We'll take it. But for now, I think it's good to talk to another Wings member, Denny Laine.
I know you've got some shows coming up, some live shows coming up. One at the Spire Theater in Plymouth, Massachusetts on August 23rd. You have a show Saturday, August 24th at the Wall Street Theater in Norwalk, Connecticut. Denny Laine, songs and stories up close and unplugged, featuring songs from the Moody Blues, Electric String Band, Ginger Baker's Air Force, and, of course, Wings. Now, that is an impressive catalog of songs to choose from. How do you pick which songs to play?
Well, obviously, I picked the songs mostly that I performed on as either lead vocalist, or co-wrote with either Mike Pinder from the Moody Blues or Paul McCartney, obviously. Mm-hmm. And then some of my own material that I've done on solo albums. So I pick songs that are near and dearest to my heart and talk about the writing of the story behind them, all that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If we can go back...
People like it. They like the feedback. Yeah, I like the feedback.
Yeah, it must be cool to get the stories behind the songs.
Well, yeah. I mean, I try to keep more music than stories because that's the way I like it. But, they're short sort of anecdotes and little, quips and funny little sort of remarks about what went down at the time of writing and recording of these songs. So, as much as I can, I try to change it up a little bit. It's, you know what I mean? It's a little bit more spontaneous than it is set stories sometimes. It's a bit of both, but
sure.
Yeah.
Well, how did it all start with you with the Moody Blues when you began your association with those musicians? How did that begin?
Well, if you want the short story, I was in a band called the Diplomats, and my drummer at the time was Bev Bevan, who went on to form ELO, because the other guys did not want to turn professional. Bev did, but in the same token, I got offered a job with two of the Moody Blues, came back from Germany and wanted to put a band together to go back to Germany, because that's where all the work was in those days. As you know, the Beatles were out there and a lot of bands. So we formed a blues band called the MD5, which turned into the Moody Blues 5. The Moody Blues. And it was based on a sponsorship we were offered, actually, called M&B, which was a brewery, to be honest. And, it's funny. And that's what turned into the Moody Blues. So we got discovered and taken down to London. Instead of going to Germany, we got discovered in this club we did a residency in and taken to London. And it went from there from blues to progressive blues to doing a bit of R&B and obscure records that we managed to get hold of through a DJ who came back from America with a load of records. And we based our set on that. And we had a piano in the band, so we had a different sound. And we immediately became friendly with the Beatles. I'd actually met them before with my old band in Birmingham. I opened for them, actually. And we became friends with the Beatles. So over that period of time, I got to know Paul, all of them very well, but especially Paul, because we used to go out a lot in London to see acts that came over from America, you know, and see Hendrix, Dylan, Lonely Spoons, bands like that, the Byrds. And we would go and check them out in the clubs. So we became kind of friends like that, you know. He was like an old brother to me in a way. And so that's how it really morphed into me being in Wings, because I think he wanted to work with somebody he knew. See what I mean?
Yeah.
Saves a lot of balance. That's really the sort of story I could tell.
Well, and of course, you sang lead vocals on Go Now, which was the group's first big hit, but you didn't really stay with the band very long. What made you leave the Moody Blues? Where did that decision come from?
Well, it came from me wanting to go to the studio to follow up on the first album, which wasn't really doing that well. They wanted to go on the road and earn some money because a lot of bands, you know, we got stitched for money and working. So they wanted to go on the road, and I said, well, no, I want to go in the studio. We owe Decca an album, and so I kind of stuck to my guns and said, I'm going to go away and write some stuff. And in the meantime, you know, they decided they wanted to keep going, and so they got Justin and John in. And, you know, it was a good move because obviously I was happy then to do my own thing. And then, of course, they had a lot of success. So I was happy about that. But, you know, that just was a bit of a rough year for me also. But then I did the Ginger Baker thing, and then the string band started to get some recognition, and then Paul and John and Peter Asher saw me playing with Jimi Hendrix, actually, doing an opener for him. And, you know, he called me shortly, about a few months after that. I think then he was thinking about putting a band together to go on the road. And he called me to join. Simple.
You already had an established career by the time you had joined Wings after being in the Moody Blues and the Electric String Band and playing alongside Ginger Baker's Air Force. You already had an established career. How did that happen with Paul McCartney? Did he just call you up and ask you if you wanted to join a band, or how did that work?
Well, I think I mentioned that I knew Paul and all the Beatles pretty well way before that, because the Moody's had done their second British tour, and also they recommended us to Brian Epstein as for management, because, you know, we had a fallout with our management, and we were looking for management. So because of that, you know, I was always pretty much, you know, in their company, going out to see bands that came over from America. We went to see Hendrix, few people like that, the Byrds, Dylan. You know, Paul and I would go out to see people. Me and John would as well, in London. So I mean, we had a bit of a social life going with the Beatles. We had parties; they would always come to our parties. So we were friends. That's as simple as that. And Paul saw me on this Jimi Hendrix show with that string band, and you know, I think that inspired him, because he was looking to put a band together, but I think he was very wary of who he was going to do it with. I think he wanted somebody he knew, you know. So, you know, because I mean, it was Paul McCartney, you know. It's a lot of people. It's hard to work with people like that because of his fame, and that's why he called me. Simple, really.
And then before you knew it, you were in Scotland, basically on the McCartney farm putting together music, right?
Yeah, it was a place he'd bought years and years ago, and he'd been up there once and hadn't been back since, I think. And Linda liked it up there because she could have her horses and whatever. And so they started to develop that piece of land. And I ended up going up there and just like staying in the garage, one night, on a mattress, and we had a little bit of equipment in one of the barns up there, and we started that way. It was just very, very basic, very raw, and it was great because it was away from the press, and the pressure wasn't on at all. So, and he was kind of wanting to put something together after he'd done Ram, and they used Denny Laine was the only guy of those session guys that wanted to be in a band, because a lot of those session people don't want to be in bands. So I think he wanted that band originally to be his backing band. So then he decided, to call me.
So at that point on the farm, it was you, Paul, Linda, Denny Laine, and you. Then that was the only musicians that were there.
Yeah.
Okay. And along those years, throughout the 70s, while you were in Wings, you wrote songs for the band. You co-wrote songs with Paul. You had a really good collaboration with Paul.
I did. I mean, mostly it wasn't just the writing, though. It was also like the fact that we'd grown up with the same music, we had the same tastes, and we worked well together. It was like, I used to be like the front man in the Moodies, and Paul loved the Moody Blues. The Beatles liked the Moodies. That's why they invited us, I think, to do that tour, because we didn't try to sound like the Beatles and everybody. There's a lot of bands that did. We were different, and he liked our style, and he wanted someone who'd had that experience. And so he was more like, although he was older than me, he was more like like an equal.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And we off each other with ideas. As I say, it developed into me writing with him as well. But he was always encouraged me to write more. I didn't write as much as I should have read. But it was never sort of, trying to hold me back in that sense. He was always trying to, kind of influence me with the rights, because I think he wanted it to be more equal, like the Beatles were, a little bit.
You would go on to co-write Mull of Kintyre with Paul, which was a big hit in the UK. Did that song come easily to you guys, or was that something that you really had to work out?
No. Again, like I say, you write about wherever you are, and we were in Scotland, and he had the chorus. I went over to breakfast one morning. I was in a separate little farmhouse, and I went there, and he played me the chorus, and I immediately thought it could be a great song. And I kind of talked him into finishing it off, really, because he wasn't too sure whether it would go down well doing a Scottish, style song. You know what I mean? It's a very kind of traditional thing up there. So anyway, I said, no, I think we should do it. And then the next day we kind of finished it off and wrote all the lyrics and just sat outside my little farmhouse and just kind of looked into the mountains and got it that way, we put it together like that. And then, of course, bringing in the pipe band, the Campbelltown Pipe Band, was the cherry on the cake, really, because obviously that gave it that Scottish, hairs on the back of the neck kind of feeling.
It's a beautiful song.
It was big.
Yeah, beautiful song. You moved around a lot with recording the albums. Band on the Run, you were in Lagos, Nigeria. For London Town, you were in the Virgin Islands, Venus and Mars, New Orleans. Parts of Back to the Egg were recorded in a castle. And I've just seen some photos recently. You were on stage. I know you've done this a few times before, but you were on stage with your former Wings bandmate, Lawrence Juber.
Yeah.
Going back to the Egg, which in my opinion is an underrated Wings album. You and Paul put together the Rockestra Orchestra, which featured David Gilmour and Pete Townsend and a whole bunch of great musicians. Do you have great memories of that session?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I knew most of those people. John Bonham on drums. I knew most of them. Or at least, I'd worked with Dave Gilmour. Pink Floyd, I'd already worked with Pink Floyd before he was even in the band, because I was, with my string band, I was meeting a lot of people and playing out in London a lot. So I knew a lot of those guys. It was I knew Townsend. It was a very big sort of, it was an idea that Paul had for a while. He always wanted to do something like that. And, of course, because we knew the people, a little bit, and he knew some people and I knew them, it was very easy to put together. Everybody wanted to be involved. It was a simple piece of music that worked, it was a first, really. And, it was great. We all had a good time.
Denny, during the years of Wings, the group saw great commercial success. Do you feel that the band got the critical recognition that they should have?
I think so. I mean, it's hard to say because, Paul was already, I'd already been in the Moody Blues. It's very hard to top that, even though it doesn't matter who you are, because we were sort of, already quite famous.
Yeah.
And to start again with something new was a big challenge, especially for Paul, I would think, because I'd already started something new and I'd been out there working with Ginger Baker and with his band, my band, so I was already out there. But for him, I think he was like a little bit, not scared, but apprehensive as to what the reaction was going to be like. And, he wanted it to be, being a perfectionist, he wanted it to be, really good. And you can't just go straight out of something like the Beatles into a band and they expect it to be as good, on stage. That's why we started doing those university things where we turn up and just say, can we play tonight?
Yeah.
Get an audience, get a reaction to a new band. And that's why it was a little bit. But, eventually, like anything else, we started doing tours. We went to Europe. We did a lot of small tours to build up to the point where it was a good band, even though we changed members eventually, and did a world tour. It had to be good. We rehearsed the hell out of it before we went, too.
Yeah.
So, I think he got the recognition then, but not to start with.
When the band broke up in 1980, were you disappointed at all?
No, not really. Because, it was partly to do with his thing in Japan that we couldn't go out and just tour the world again because of visa situation. But it was also a time when, I'd been in the studio so much, I wanted to do some live work. Mm-hmm. And really, if that band had stayed together, the Back to the Egg lineup, we would have gone on to bigger and better things.
Sure.
And that was a disappointment.
Yeah.
But I still hung in there and did 2 more albums with Paul. But to say, it was going to be a long time before we were going to be going out and doing all that live stuff again. And I already was starting to think, like, I want to go out there and do something live, and had a few songs on my own, and I just kind of away.
Then you released a solo album on your own. I think your second solo album, Japanese Tears, you released after that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd already kind of had, aspirations. It was mainly because I wanted to play live, that's all. And I didn't see the future for that at the time. But, it struggle as well because I had to start again. It's always hard starting again, but at the same time, you have that enthusiasm that drives you forward.
Well, you're playing again August 23rd, Spire Theater in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and then the Wall Street Theater in Norwalk, Connecticut on Saturday, August 24th. Denny Laine, Songs and Stories Up Close and Unplugged, featuring songs over your entire career with the Moody Blues, the Electric String Band, Ginger Baker's Air Force, and, of course, Wings. Denny, again, it has been a great privilege to talk with you.
No, that's great. Thanks very much, Finn.
So your childhood has now come full circle.
Yes.
And you are at peace. You are at one. It's a happy Finn. Your chi is in a good place.
We've talked about this before many times. Every time we have a guest on Barstool Rockers who is someone that was so influential on our childhood growing up and first listening to music. And I've been posting this on Facebook quite a lot lately. I think I'm actually a bigger fan of Wings than I am the Beatles, and that's crazy. But, that decade was right in that smack dab in that period of me growing up and really getting into music. So
the influential period, they say like 14 is the magic number. What you're listening to at 14 is what shapes you musically. So
it's really cool to talk to somebody that you listened to all those years while you were growing up.
And a nice chap as well. Does he flatten picks though? Or flatten pennies to make picks?
I should have asked him. See, now I'm going to have to call him back up.
And you won't mind it one bit, will
Not
ya?
at all.
There you go. Hey, if you enjoyed what we do on the podcast, it's called Barstool Rockers. Do consider leaving us a favorable rating over at iTunes, or is it Apple Podcasts now, whatever they call it. Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, wherever you're listening to us. Every time somebody does a positive review, it helps somebody else find the show. We do want to thank our very, very dear friend Anastasia Wisniewski, who creates our music.
Does she use pennies or coins?
She uses fingers.
She's a Lindsey Buckingham kind of player.
She's not a pick girl.
Wow.
She goes at the Schecter with her fingers.
Now, in the 30 or 40 years that I've been trying to learn how to play guitar, I could never do that. It just hurts the fingers so much.
Yeah, no.
But whatever works for you.
There's an occasional pick, but it's only for effect.
You go, girl.
There you go. If you know somebody who may enjoy what we're doing, please share today's episode with them. I mean, if they're a Wings fan, a McCartney fan, Denny Laine, etc., we'd love to have you share it with them so we can help grow this something. And if you want more information about today's episode, to contact us, all that stuff, it's barstoolrockers.com. Or if you want to get us on email, it's barstoolrockers@gmail.com. And our Facebook page is called Barstool Rockers. It works really nice that way. One consistent name straight across the board. Yeah, we don't call it different things in different places.
Keep it simple, Best for us, I think.
That works.
Yeah.
That just seems to work. So
until next time.